Welcome to Baxter Yoga. Today I'm here at the Oakland Yoga Studio. Thanks for joining me. Please check out the studio the next time you're in town. So I wanted to take a minute today to talk a little bit about the neck area. It's a pretty interesting area of the body, and I'll give you just some basic ideas on how it's put together and how it works. So I want to mention that the neck area goes from the base of your skull all the way down to the top of the rib cage, and it consists of 7 small bones called the cervical vertebra. They're much smaller than the bones that lie below them because, in fact, they only have to bear the weight of the skull and not the rest of the body, so that allows them to be a little smaller. In addition to the bones being smaller, the discs in between the bones are also a little thinner than in other areas. Despite the smallness of the bones, they're actually quite mobile, and there's a whole series of muscles on the back of the neck, the sides of the neck, and the front of the throat that help to move the neck around in all the different directions that it can go. So the head can obviously drop forward and down, which is known as flexion of the neck. We can also take the neck back and up a little bit, which is extension of the neck. We can also drop one ear towards one shoulder, which is called lateral side bending, and then obviously to the other side. And then finally we can rotate the head to one side, and we can rotate it to the other. So we've got this really nice range of motion. In fact, the neck is perhaps the overall most mobile area of the entire spine when we compare it to the lower back and the thoracic or rib cage area. There's also an interesting fact that there's a thick artery blood vessel that runs through the side projections of the vertebra called the vertebral artery, and it goes up and into the brain, kind of in the back half of the neck, which matches the carotid arteries which run up the front of the throat. And this supplies the brain with 4 different arteries that can send oxygenated, rich blood up into the brain along with nutrition to keep that brain healthy over time. In addition to what I've mentioned already, I also want to mention that the first 2 vertebrae, which I have little models of here, you can kind of see they're almost rectangular, slightly oval shape. This is the second vertebra, which is the axis, and it has a little projection that sticks straight up. And then the atlas, which sits right on top of it, lies right below the skull. So the movement of the skull on that first bone, that atlas, can account for about 50% of the amount of flexion and extension that takes place through the whole neck, just at that one joint between C1 and the skull. And then the joint between C1 and C2 allows for a great deal of rotation to take place. In fact, 50% of the rotation of my neck takes place at that very first joint, and the additional 50% takes place at the other bones down below it. So that's some basic understanding of the neck area, the cervical vertebra, the small discs, their general shape, the fact that you have good flexion, extension, rotation, and fair side bending of the neck for most folks, and the fact that it's a pretty heavily muscled area to allow for the head to look around in all directions to keep us safe and to look for opportunities as our day goes on. So we'll leave it there for today, just as an introduction to the cervical area. We may come back and look at that in more detail down the road. I hope you've enjoyed this brief anatomy lesson today. And of course, the neck plays a big role in our yoga practices. We use it in a lot of our different postures in different ways. So it's nice to know something about it as we apply that to our yoga practice. You can follow me online at baxterbell.com. Check out my blog site, Yoga for Healthy Aging. Don't forget, my new book, Yoga for Healthy Aging, comes out on December 12, 2017. It's already available on Amazon for pre-order, as well as shambhala.com. Look for longer yoga practices on the yogayouonline.com channel, and I have something on there called the Practice Channel that has lots of practices. Until the next time, thank you for joining me. Namaste.